Who that? Who that? Who that? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Colin Cowie. I'm an executive producer of String Caesar, and you're watching MichaelaTV.com.
Check it.
Until I hit the ceiling, and I don't play with, cause they be catching feelings.
Welcome back. We are here with the very beautiful and very talented producer of the movie String Caesar, Alice Krige. How are you tonight?
I'm very well. I'm fine, thank you.
So talk to us about, well, we're so happy to speak with you. Talk to us about what this project means to you and what you would like to tell our viewers about this, the prison culture in South Africa.
The project is has many layers of sort of connection to my heart. It took a very long time to realise, to accomplish, because it was not something the film industry could wrap its head around. So we spent a lot of time working in prisons, and the story was fascinating to me always, to tell the story of this kid who was perceived in Roman times as a total failure, a washout. He couldn't hold down a job, he was always in debt, he was bisexual when he shouldn't have been, he was all the things he shouldn't have been, and yet he becomes one of the most memorable statesmen of all time. You could, if he was alive now, he might be in The Hague for war crimes, but yes, right, so it's how you look at history, and to tell this story that not many people know, because everyone knows the Caesar of Shakespeare. This has got nothing to do with
romanticized version.
Yes, well, he was a remarkable man. This tells his adolescence, but it tells it from an entirely different point of view. The facts are the facts of his adolescence, but it tells it in a different setting. On a certain level, for Caesar, Rome was a prison. So we tell the story in a series of prisons. And the longer we worked in prisons, as we struggled to pull together the funding for the picture, the more important working in prisons became to me. Because we went in to make a movie, and through the course of time we discovered, quite inadvertently, that the work that we were doing, which was running acting and writing workshops, was very, very helpful to the people who were imprisoned, because they realized that we felt they had something very valuable to offer. And many people who are in prison have never had that feeling, have also never been given the opportunity or the tools to channel whatever ability they have. And it was very interesting to watch how this kind of work gave people a sense of their own creativity. That doesn't mean that they were going to go and be actors or writers, but it just gave people a sense of their own personal power to create, and it makes you feel good about yourself. And so the work came to mean an enormous amount to me on that level, in addition to just the process of making the movie and finally finishing it. And what's wonderful is that we have continued to work with many of the people who've left prison. Those people who show a talent for writing have kind of clung on, grasped hold of the idea. And we're working with 3 people who have left prison who are writing with us and for us as a group, because we'll all continue forward as a group making work together. So it's a long answer to a short question. But yeah.
What kind of a personal, spiritual impact do you think you have had on these inmates that you've worked with over this time? I'm sure it's been amazing. Talk to us about how you think you've touched them.
No, I can't talk about how I've touched them, but I can talk about how they've touched me. The first thing I remember was I'd been acting, I suppose, for 4 or 5 years professionally at that point, and I can remember going into the prison and doing the improvisational workshops and thinking, oh my goodness, these people are working with such candor and such simplicity and such directness, not thinking, oh, if I do this it'll work, just being it. And I thought, right, this is my biggest lesson in acting. It has been one of the most moving experiences of my life. I can remember sitting with a group of juvenile prisoners in Cardiff prison, and we were just chatting after the workshop, and my husband said, if the mines had not been closed 20 years ago, would any of you be in here? And they all said, no, no. What had happened was that they had been born into a culture of unemployment. There was no work. Thatcher closed the mines. There was mass unemployment in Wales. Kids were born into unemployment. It was everything they knew. And it's just very, very moving to see human beings who have ability, who have talent, circumstance, and it is true that sometimes circumstance overwhelms you. It's very difficult to fight your way out of it. But we had, because of something we wanted to achieve, given them an opportunity, and they all just took hold of it. And that was profoundly moving. Yeah.
What would you like for people to take away from this film? When they're walking out of the theater after experiencing this film, what would you like them to take away when they leave?
I would be very happy if the film had the same effect on them as it did on me when I started, which was I suddenly realized that I had all sorts of stereotypes in my head.
Interesting.
And I didn't even know I had them. And actually beginning to work with prisoners in prisons, and also looking at an historical story from a different perspective, made me start to, one, question my own stereotypes and prejudices, and two, wonder about the way we're taught history. You know, it's always the person who writes the history books.
Sure. Interpretation.
Yes.
Right.
And so it's all about questioning and not necessarily believing what you're told.
Welcome back. Of course, I am Michaela of MichaelaTV.com, and I have the pleasure of being here with author T.J. English of the new book, Savage City. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Doing great. Talk to us about your newest published book, and what would you like people to know about it?
The Savage City is a nonfiction book about a period of intense hostility between the NYPD and the Black Liberation Movement in New York City in the 60s and early 70s. When all the racial stuff was coming to a head, and there was quite a bit of tension between the cops and the local black community, and all of that had to be worked out. There's a whole generation of young people that were working that out so that we could get to the place where we are today.
Now, what kind of research did you have to do to put something like this together? Because it sounds really intricate.
Tons of research. It starts with everything you can find to read on the subject, old newspaper articles, magazine articles, documentaries, and then finding the people who lived through it, because I like to tell history through the lives of people who lived it, you know. So finding sources, finding people who could give you first-hand accounts of what this era was like, because that's what you need to really bring it alive. You see it through the eyes of the characters.
Absolutely. So now there are a million different subjects that a writer can write about. Why did you choose this particular subject? What does it mean to you?
Well, this is a crucial period in American urban history, this period of the 60s and early 70s. You know, this was the era where the civil rights movement came from the southern states up to the northern cities, and there was a lot of work that needed to be done to figure out how we were going to live together, how everyone was going to have fair and equal opportunity within the criminal justice system. And so I always knew this was an important era. A lot of this history's been forgotten. It's been buried under the rug. And that's what journalists are supposed to do, go into the dark corners and dig it out.
Now, I'm going to ask maybe a little bit of a controversial question, but I think it's important because our audience is urban and Latino and black. Now, I'm going to ask something that most people would want to ask. You're a white guy.
Really?
Yes, if you didn't already know.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Why? Now, you know, of course, the story has been told by many different people. What does it mean to you personally? I want to hear what it means to you here.
I grew up in that era. I was a kid when all of these events were happening, and it left a really strong impression with me. The civil rights movement was something that everyone in the United States grew up with, watching the images of it on the TV every night, reading about it in the news. So to me, it was the American story. I knew that these events were going to have to be worked out if the United States of America was ever going to be the country that it claimed to be, that it wants to be, that it dreams of being. And so I think of this as our history. I don't think of it as any one specific ethnic group's history. It was the history of the United States trying to work towards becoming the country that we talked about in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and all of that.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you for putting your energy and your passion into a subject that I think is really important.
Thank you.
What would you like people to take away from this book when they're done reading it?
To get out and read the book. Don't think that it's not relevant to you, because really this history is the roots of what's happening today. If you want to understand what's happening in the big cities today, particularly a city like New York, you have to know the history. And to understand the history, you got to go back and you got to spend some time with it. So don't think it's not relevant to your life today, because it is.
Okay, you heard it here first. Make sure you go out and you buy the book, Savage City. And if you want to learn more about the history of where you came from and where we came from, this is the book for you. Signing out for now, this is Michaela, your host of MichaelaTV.com and the Michaela Radio Show. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Well, there are two things going on. One is the East Harlem International Film Festival, which takes off on June 1st through June 5th, 2011, this year, of course. The idea was to bring different types of films from all around the world, bring them to a community of folks that may have never even been to a film festival before, but also the idea of exposing them to films that they wouldn't normally see in theaters. We have films from India, we have films from China, we have films from South America, the Caribbean, United States, Canada, Australia, you name it. We got a whole variety of things for people to see. So, and also too, making East Harlem a destination place.
Absolutely.
You know, there's so many places you can go to in New York City, but East Harlem has a lot going on. We got, you know, the culture, the music, the food, the restaurants, the people most importantly. And of course, the East Harlem Film Society, something that we're building here in the community. When you think of East Harlem, you don't think, you think, are there any theaters in East Harlem? We actually do have a theater. We're here at the Poets Den right now. It's a beautiful 135-seat theater, which actually resembles a classic movie house if you were to see it. And there's also an art gallery.
Well, it's a wonderful venue for you to be able to showcase your films. What would you like the goal of this entire thing to be? At the end of the day, what would you like people to take away from this?
I think, just to have a good time. I mean, I love films. A lot of folks love films, and I think the idea is just to be able to share different types of films. People have they have their voice from anywhere in the world, and in a place like East Harlem, where you think there's been a lot of social movements, some big movements here in the community that have changed the quality of life here. You think of East Harlem, people who don't know, a lot of important things have happened here for the people, and film being a very important way of communicating and sharing with folks what's going on in their town, their community, their culture. What a great place to bring different types of films, and just to remind folks that, hey, you know what, you can do this too. I think also encouraging folks to make films. A lot of people have passions. They don't know where to start. So maybe folks might go to see a film during the festival and get inspired, and might want to go to film school and start their own.
So don't forget, you don't have to be a movie buff to enjoy East Harlem International Film Festival, coming very soon. Make sure you check them out at EHIFF.com. This is Michaela signing out for now. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Can't stop, won't stop, see that's how dedicated. And you gon' have to palm my fingers off this microphone, cause I'm like Princess Mary, the heiress to the throne. And I'm as cold as winter, you feel it in your bones. See, I'm one of a kind, something you can never clone. Leave it alone, just walk away. I promise you, I ain't nothing to be played. I'm fine as hell, but I'm crazy in the worst way.